Welcome to the Mom and podcast. We're your hosts, Suzanne Kearns
and Missy Stevens. We want to help you through everything that happens in the ellipses, from your professional life to your emotional health.
You're a mom and so much more. Let's figure out what comes next together. So welcome to the Mom and podcast. Today we are so excited to have Olga Mecking, the author of Niksen, Embracing the Dutch Art of Doing Nothing. Olga is a journalist, a writer, a translator, and originally from Poland, she now lives with her German husband and her 3 children in the Netherlands. Her writing has appeared in the New York Times, The Atlantic, the BBC, and The Guardian, among other things. And her first book, of course, as we're discussing, Niksen, Embracing the Dutch Art of Doing Nothing, is now out with Houghton Mifflin Harcourt. So welcome, Olga.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
Yes, welcome. So our audience is filled with really busy women trying to kind of figure out what's next in their life. And all of them need some self-care. And a lot of them probably used to get self-care by leaving the house in some way. And now nobody leaves the house ever. So we wanted to kick off with a discussion of what Niksen is not, because it's not sitting on the couch mindlessly scrolling through social media. I was sad to find out. That's not it. That's not achieving the goal of Niksen. So can you talk a little bit about what it is and is not?
Yeah, so to kind of tie that up to what you just said about it not being, scrolling Facebook. And I want to say it's okay to scroll Facebook or Twitter or whatever, to use social media. It's okay. It's not Niksen, but it's not a bad thing, right? So we will do it. We do it for a reason. And I think it's just, fine if you're scrolling Facebook, especially if the people on Facebook are sort of the only people you see. But what Niksen is, so Niksen is a Dutch word and it means to do nothing. And I really like that the Dutch had one word for doing nothing, to say to do nothing or not to do anything. But in Dutch, it's just Niksen. It's one word, very convenient, very practical. And
I love it.
And I kind of set up to find a good definition, because what's doing nothing? Like what what is it?
Right.
And I found it pretty hard to kind of find a good definition, but one I found and I really liked was to do nothing without a purpose. So it's kind of sitting on your couch and staring out of the window and looking at clouds or looking at people go by. And then the other part, I also like the other part, without a purpose. Because very often we find that we have to have some sort of philosophy behind everything we do. So let's say we don't eat certain things because they taste good. We eat them because they're healthy, or they'll give us some certain nutrients, or because they're good for our diets, or because they're good for our gut health. Million reasons, philosophies. Just not that it just tastes good.
Right. Like it just feels good sometimes to sit and look at the clouds.
Yeah, sometimes it does. Yeah, sometimes it really does.
I loved the Latvian phrase you talked about that was to cucumber around.
Yeah.
I've thought about it so much in the last week. I think I need to go cucumber around for a little while.
Yeah, there's so many. I found it interesting that there were so many phrases or words around the world, well, that they didn't always mean, doing nothing, but they had something to do with just sitting around and maybe doing nothing, or just doing not something, like something that's not terribly important and sort of slow and lazy.
Right.
I thought that was really nice.
Yes.
And I know when I first picked up the book, I was thinking it was going to be more like meditation. And so, and meditation, I think for me and for a lot of people can seem a little scary because you don't feel like you're doing it right. And that's one of the things I really found appealing about Niksen, is that it's not this pressure to feel like, am I doing it right? But I did find myself while I was doing it, like with my mind really kind of like a mom's, where you got a million other things. My shopping list starts coming into my head and I'm like, I don't feel like this is Niksening. So like, are you supposed to try to correct yourself when that happens, or just kind of get back to the clouds?
No, I think naturally it's going to go from kind of one state to another. So may start with kind of wanting to nix around, and you're going to do it for a few minutes, and then you're going to turn to your to-do list, or you're going to kind of go through, shopping, or everything you have to do, and then you kind of remember, oh, I have work to do too, and then you start thinking about that. I think unless that becomes very upsetting to you, right, in a way that it gets your heart pumping, and if you start feeling very, very bad, unless that happens, I think it's okay to just let it happen, and not expect yourself to think in a certain way, or be in a certain state of mind, because all those thoughts, like in my case, all those thoughts that it starts with, oh, I have to do this and this and this and that, and it kind of reminds me of a book that I just read, and that reminds me of a book that I wanted to read but haven't bought yet, so I have to buy it. And then it goes to about remembering this other book. They said something interesting that may lead to a story. So it's kind of, for at least for me and in my head, is my thoughts just start jumping around in my head, and bumping into each other and create new ideas.
Yeah.
And for me, this is the big appeal of Niksen, this kind of creativity and inventiveness.
In America, we've got a kid's book called If You Give a Mouse a Cookie. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but they play off it for moms. Like, if you give a mom a cookie, it's like, okay, if you give a mom a cookie, then she's going to remember that she needs to buy some milk. And then she's going to remember the study she read about, calcium deficiency in women. And then she's going to go, freak out that her prescriptions haven't been filled. And so it's just this idea. And I think that that's kind of the way that, I guess everybody's brain works that way, but I feel like moms, especially, you go into it in the book a lot about this.
It's the mental load of motherhood.
The mental load.
Yeah.
So it's that mental load that I think a lot of moms carry, where you feel like, if I'm not constantly thinking about it, I might forget to do it.
But kind of in between, sometimes you get those kind of flashes of inspiration where you have, an idea for an article, or at least I do, or something that's kind of more creative.
I think that's the beauty of Niksen, that there should not be guilt attached with it. And it doesn't have to be hours long. It's not even like committing to a movie. You're going to nix around for a few minutes, and who knows what your brain will do at that time. It's sort of magical.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's what I found, because I have noticed also with myself that when I kind of, with meditation, for example, you kind of start and, okay, am I in the right state of mind? Is my head clear enough? Is the music right? Are my clothes right? And then you start kind of worrying that you're not doing enough to kind of get it right or correctly or perfectly.
Right.
And I also felt like this guilt. It's also very, very true, sadly, for many mothers, that they just feel guilty when they're not constantly doing something. And I thought also thought that telling them to, just don't feel guilty, it's not. I find it not very helpful, simply because then they start, okay, but I am feeling guilty, so you're telling me I shouldn't feel guilty, but I am. And so are you telling me my feelings are not correct, or what's your problem at the moment? So I think it's just better to acknowledge that you're feeling guilty. And one piece of advice I got from Chris Bailey, who is a productivity expert, he says, okay, yeah, he do feel guilty when he wasn't productive all the time. He's the productivity expert. He should be productive at all times. And he said, no, actually, yeah, I value good work. I value getting things done. I value writing. I value, just good work. But I also value rest. I also value relaxing. I also value taking time for myself. And I also think for many people, maybe it would help to say, okay, if you wouldn't do it for yourself, at least say, okay, but maybe it will make me, it will help my kids, or like try to find a way to make it work for you. So that's what I try to tell people.
Because it's modeling a really nice behavior for your kids. If you can make that appeal to moms, okay, you're guilty, but you're doing it for them. So it doesn't count.
I know for some, Gretchen Rubin has this kind of, she divides people in 4 groups, and there's this one group called the Obligers, who just really like to.
We are both Obligers.
We're both Gretchen Rubin Obligers, for sure.
Yeah, so she says for those people it helps if if you can't meet your own expectations, then at least you're gonna meet other people's expectation. And if your kids have a calmer, more relaxed mom, that's just just a positive thing.
Exactly. So do you find, as you were interviewing or as you continue to talk to moms about excuses or reasons that they have for not doing it or making it a practice, is that primarily it, the guilt, or are there some other excuses you hear?
Yeah, so the guilt is a big part. Although I wouldn't say those are excuses. I think those are legitimate reasons why
Mm-hmm.
women, mothers, find it difficult to do nothing, because those social expectations, they are real, and they have real impact on mothers' behavior. So, and for example, if we see a father on the couch or a man on the couch sitting there doing nothing, we'd say, "Oh, he's thinking big thoughts." Or he's resting because he's working so hard. Imagine the
Yeah.
same with a mom or a woman on the couch. It doesn't
Mm-mm,
happen, or not as
mm-mm.
much, simply
Yeah.
because men tend to kind of protect their own time, and then also women protect men's time as well. So they have like this double sort of protection, and then women do not protect their own time, and no one else does either.
Mm-hmm.
And there's this big gap between how we see men's and women's time. So for example, men's time is you just have a small amount of it, right? So it's valuable
Mhm.
and has to be
Right.
used wisely. Women's time is it's a river, like it's always there, and women will always have time for everything. And so we don't tend to think of that time as valuable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I
Yeah.
loved the chapter all about busyness and
Yes.
assigning this value to busyness. A couple episodes ago, Missy and I spent the whole episode talking about this idea of backfilling your busy. Like as soon as time frees up in your life, women, is it just me and you, Missy? I don't think so. We
I don't
automatically
think so.
fill it with things that aren't necessarily the highest value things that we could be doing for ourselves. So instead of spending, 5 minutes to Nix, we'll spend 5 minutes organizing a spice drawer or whatever the case may be, just because we feel like we need to be busy and we need to be doing something that has this visible result when we're done.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's
yeah,
this kind of shame, and I don't want to say pleased, but it was heartening to realize that wasn't just an American thing.
Mm.
But I feel like in the US we're so conditioned that everything has to have a byproduct.
yeah,
You can't even really have a hobby anymore without somebody saying you should open an Etsy store
yeah,
or you
yeah,
should
yeah, yeah,
monetize
yeah.
that. And so it was nice to see that that is a worldwide condition, and nice to know that there is a movement to do something about that and change that.
Yes.
Yeah, I even read something in a Polish Facebook page that kind of talked about this exact thing, and they said we have to be seen working, and if we're done with our work in a smaller amount of time, then we have to do it again,
Yep.
Right.
because the more time you spend on work, the assumption is the more time you spend on work, the better, and the more you'll do. And in fact, for
Right.
some types of work, give me 2 hours, I'll do it in 2 hours. Give me 6 hours, I'll do it in 6.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right.
And I loved your chapter about the FaceTime at the office, as well as just your boss seeing you there and
Mhm.
that showing that, oh, I'm spending this much time here. I must be very important. I'm doing all these things. And I'm
Yeah,
really curious how, all this time of people working at home and, from COVID might hopefully maybe impact that, where people can see that there's the opportunity to not have to be in your face for your boss to think that you're actually doing work. We'll see
yeah,
if that
that too.
remains once people go back to the office.
Yeah, yeah, but of course, like from home, like then it also changes, because then everyone is constantly available.
Mm-hmm.
So the
Mhm.
the lines between work and home that have started blurring long time ago has they have blurred even more.
Yep. Yeah, I
Right.
remember the first time, and this was probably 10, 15 years. Gosh, it was definitely 15 years ago. Man, I
Hmm.
haven't had a real job for a long time. But,
Yeah,
but
Yeah, you have.
I remember the first time one of my clients called me at home. I'm sure maybe today that isn't as big of a deal, But yeah, that chipping away at the privacy and your special safe space of home that's going to be a scary result of this working from home as well.
Yeah, and also the surveillance where kind of employers can install sort of software to make sure like to kind of really see what their employers are doing and how long they're doing it and what they're using.
Oh God, I haven't even thought of that.
Mm.
I know my kids' teachers are doing that.
Oh, yeah, the teachers are doing that.
Yeah.
I had to make sure to remind my kids not to be Googling on their school laptops.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, because they're being monitored. I'm wondering if you, in talking to women, especially now that those lines are obliterated between work and home for most people, what's been the greatest challenge for working Niksen into their day? Whereas I think we're conditioned to think, oh, if I want to go get a manicure or a massage or go on a meditation retreat, I plan that, I schedule it, I block it out. With something like Niksen, you can just do it. So is that a challenge, or is it actually beneficial that people are home?
I would say it's beneficial, and activities like manicures, it's great, but it's also something like you said, you have to plan it, you have to schedule it, you have to go somewhere, and you have to usually pay for it. So that's kind of really interesting how we expected to pay to make ourselves feel better, and it's kind of revolutionary to think that you can just stay at home and not have to go anywhere. For example, a few years ago, I signed up for ballet classes, and I found that I really enjoyed it while I was there, but I had to leave the moment my husband came back from work, and I had to kind of remember to, then breastfeed my baby. And then get out of the door and hurry up and make it to classes on time. And I found that so stressful that I just stopped going.
Yep.
Yeah, I completely relate to that. It becomes so much more of a burden than a mental health break. Even if you do enjoy it while you're there, there's just all these extra pieces around it.
Yeah, no, it's true. And then ballet, I really liked it, but it was just too stressful to be worth the effort.
Yeah, that's such a shame too. But it's kind of interesting that you bring up this idea of, Niksen being free. And I wonder if people put less value on it because if you had to go to a class to Niksen and you paid $40 a month for that, I think people would assign more value to it.
Maybe so, but then why do you have to monetize everything?
Yeah, well, I think that's the mentality, especially of Americans. I think that if you're not paying for it, then is it valuable or?
Right. Whereas I think it's probably one of the most valuable things we can do is give ourselves permission to just be.
Yes. And I'm curious, Olga, how has it impacted your life? Are you still doing it after the book? Is it part of your daily ritual?
Yeah, so that I think it's important to kind of acknowledge that it's hard to generalize because even, for example, if you talk about mothers, okay, where are they? What is the government response? What kind of support do they have available? And are the schools open? For me, that it's a big difference if the schools are open or not. So, for example, from March last year till May last year, they closed schools, and I was running around like a headless chicken, basically. I was so stressed. And then they opened the schools, and that was so nice. It was actually nice because the kids were at school, and I didn't have to take care of their schoolwork anymore because that was the school's job again. And I found that quite relaxing. That was actually nice to be able to send your kids to school and have them learn there, so I wouldn't be responsible for their learning. But now the schools are closed again, so now I'm really stressed out again. So not very good.
Yeah. My kids have not been to school since last March. It's almost a year now. We're having a lot of together time.
Yeah,
can
so
relate.
and after that I'm just it's not tiring, it's not physically tiring. I'm not doing physical work here, but after that I'm just so tired. I'm exhausted, and if I do any Niksen at this time, it's probably because I can't move my toes. I'm so tired.
It's because you're unconscious.
Yeah, almost, yeah.
Do your kids know about Niksen? Do they know that you wrote a book? Do they know about the concept?
They do, yes. And my eldest, she was very involved in the book writing process. First, she said, "No, I can't do nothing." She's just very active, very athletic. So she moves around a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but sometimes she would like go like, "Oh, I just read this," or "You have to write about that." So she was really contributing. That was really nice.
That's
And
very cute.
yeah, no, that was actually very cute. And the two little ones, I think they are kind of much better at doing nothing.
Yeah, I think it is something to some extent that is innate in certain people. Like I have one child who I really want to introduce this concept to him and practice it with him a couple times a day or for a couple minutes even, because he can't do nothing. And if there is nothing to do, he's at odds with himself. And then I have another child who he could probably stare at the ceiling for a little while and be totally fine with that and not feel guilt. And he, I think, innately understands the benefit to that. Whereas my other one is like, heck no, like I need a thing to do and a plan at all times.
Yep.
Yeah, no, that's that's fine. Work with what you've got, right? So if you're a person who schedules things, then schedule Niksen time. And if Niksen doesn't work, maybe you can try it some more. But if it really doesn't work, which is perfectly fine, then you can do something else. Like I know people find coloring very relaxing, or playing with Lego blocks, or I know even Lego started doing sets for stressed adults. So they're no longer targeting kids, they're targeting stressed out adults, so they can kind of play around.
I
And
love that.
people color, people paint, people crochet. I cook or bake.
Mm-hmm.
At those times. So there's so many other things that you can do. And what helps me, for example, is listening to music. And then I really kind of focus on the music.
Yeah.
And try to, okay, this is the voice, and this is the bass line, and this is the trumpet, or what kind of instrument is that. And you're really listening to music, so you focus on that, but you're really doing nothing.
Yeah.
That's
I
a
like
good
it.
idea. Well, before we jump into the look, listen, learn segment, is there anything that we haven't covered about Niksen that you think is really important for people to know?
No, I think we've covered it all.
And they can get the books if we missed
Yes.
anything. We don't want to cover all of it. They need to go read the book.
The book is it's beautifully written, and it's also really beautifully laid out. Like I highly recommend getting the actual hard copy book. It's just a lovely piece of writing.
Yes.
And it's
and
so
such a
nice.
beautiful cover.
It's such a pretty cover, and it's just there's something peaceful about everything down to the typeface. I can't explain it, but it's a pretty book.
It's very, like, I haven't seen the actual US North American version of the book, because the other version they're actually very different, and they were more kind of orange.
Yeah, this one's just beautiful. Oh yeah, Missy can show it to you. She's got it on her shelf there.
Yeah.
Wow, it looks really pretty.
It's really pretty, and the inside is I can't explain it, but it is like it's just pretty. Yeah, it looks great. And it's kind of got a nice like blush pink to it.
Wow.
Yeah,
no,
I like it.
Thank you so much for showing me, because I haven't gotten this version yet. So I've got the Polish version, the Russian version, the Hungarian, Romanian, UK, Dutch. There are 3 English language versions. So one for the Netherlands and Belgium, one for the UK and Commonwealth, and one for US, US and Canada. And the fun thing is that they're all different versions, so different covers. The version that's published in the Netherlands in Dutch and English has also different art. If I can get a copy if you want to see it.
Oh yeah, that would be so interesting. We can. Do you have it someplace we could link the show notes to? Please excuse our brief pause as Olga goes to her bookcase.
I'm back. So this is the Dutch version.
Oh, that's like super simple.
Yeah, so the English version in the Netherlands is similar, only the Dutch, the orange and the beige they change places.
Got it.
Oh, I love how simple that is.
There are really cute drawings in there.
Look
Oh,
at that.
those.
That's really cute.
And I'm
No,
guessing, did your publisher take care of all that art stuff?
yeah. So that's what I wanted to say. The US edition, they sent me some art, so I have no idea which ones, like what they used, because I haven't seen the whole thing yet for
Yeah.
the US and Canada. Yeah. So, but they did change it, so they went in a totally different direction. That's also super pretty. So
Yeah.
I'm really excited. For example, I love the Polish cover of Niksen. Um,
Oh, anything with a cat.
exactly. So the cat, I think that's my favorite one.
Talk about Niksen prose.
Yeah,
Cats just
exactly.
get it.
Yeah.
That's an excellent point.
Yeah, be
well,
a cat or a cucumber.
Yeah, be a cucumber. Yeah, that's what they said. That might look like a different kind of book. But since we're talking about reading, that makes sense to lead into the
Yeah.
look, listen, learn. So Olga, we have a little segment that we do look, listen, learn. So it's like look could be things that you're watching, reading, listen, things that you're listening to, or things that you've learned. But we may or may not be renaming it.
I
So
feel like we're kind of stuck with it now, although
I
it's
think
growing on me.
it's growing on me. But just to give you an idea of the kind of stuff we talk about, we'll go ahead and jump in first so we can give you a head start of stuff to think about. So my look for this week, and it continues to be for the past few weeks, is this artist I found called, I hope I'm pronouncing this right, Carlos Gamas de Francisco. And we need to link to this in the show notes. I am just in love. And we could have an entire podcast episode about how I came upon his art. At this woman who lives not too far away from us has an art dealership out of her house. So her house is just like filled, like it's on the floor, it's on shelves, it's in the kitchen, it's everywhere. Like famous artists, like Diego Rivera pieces in her kitchen. Just yeah. And we went over there. She offered my daughter a tour because my daughter's an artist, just to kind of look around. And I came upon this art and I'm just obsessed. So I've been following, and he just had a few new pieces come out on Instagram. So I was looking at those. And then I don't know if this is a learning thing. This head massager.
I got one of those for Christmas.
You got one for Christmas?
Yes. Do you use it when you shampoo?
Yes.
Yes.
It is the gift that keeps on giving. Every day, it is, well, not every day, because let's be honest about how often I shower.
Or wash hair.
But it's just, and it costs what, like $3 on Amazon?
Yeah.
I bought them for my mom. I bought them for my in-laws. I got them for my kids, and you just, and I never realized how much stress we hold in our head until I gave myself this little head massage. And so that's my learn. My learn is $4. I don't even know if it has a brand. I'm sure it's just general head massager.
Yeah.
We'll link to it in the show notes. Best thing I've ever spent my money on.
They're pretty fabulous.
That's what I've learned this week.
Yeah. Okay. Good to know.
What about you, Missy? You want to give Olga a little more time?
Yeah. I caught up on The Crown. Don't know if you've heard of the show, The Crown.
Oh yeah.
I'm so far behind. So I'm all caught up. I finished season 4, and that's kind of my look and my learn, because I have to pause every episode, and I've never really been totally into the whole royals. You know, I'm not obsessed. I am excited when there's a wedding to watch on TV because it's just kind of fun, but it's not really my thing. So every episode I have to pause and I have to go Google things. So I've learned so much about people and their place in history and what was going on at that time. And so it's kind of fun.
It is a little history lesson.
No, we haven't watched the new season yet, but I'm looking forward to it because it's kind of moving into our time in a way.
Yes.
With Diana and Margaret Thatcher and stuff like that. So that's going to be, interesting. So we haven't watched that yet, but it's on our list. We are the one that we're watching together for the moment is Suits. We also very much behind. It's kind of it's fun. It's about lawyers and it's fun.
And Meghan Markle before she was a princess or whatever she is.
Exactly. So speaking of royals,
it all comes full circle.
I know. I might have to check that out just out of curiosity. I never watched it, but I had forgotten she was on it. So to
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
check her out.
she's not in there anymore. So the show goes on without kind of the two main protagonists, but
Mhm.
it's still really good. And I'm watching. I'm now watching Bridgerton, like everyone else probably.
Oh yes.
And it's kind of fun, but I'm not very into it, to be honest.
It's just frivolous fun, don't you feel like?
It's just okay. Yeah. We disagree, so let's kind of shoot at each other until one of us dies, dueling and kind of.
I know. I did just watch the dueling episode, and I just kept looking at my husband saying, dudes are so weird.
Right?
Like women would not do that. They would just like
No.
sneak into someone's room and stab them and have it over with. It's just, like, what's all this silliness about taking steps and you bring the doctor? Dueling is such a dude thing.
It is such a dude thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. And before that, I watched The Queen's Gambit, which I thought was excellent. It was so good. Yeah, I really
And such a
enjoyed watching
beautiful
that.
show, like to look at all the clothes and
Yes.
the settings, the cars, and all of it was cool.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Yeah, no, it was really nice to watch. And there's this one scene when she's kind of playing this big tournament. They're the biggest of her life, and they're actually. I was actually. I know this probably would never happen in real life, but there were all those her male friends cheering her on and giving her advice on how she could win. And I just was so kind of, this scene just made me very happy. Like to see the scene where, a bunch of guys cheering on this one woman playing.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Yes. And she was the hero of the show.
Yeah, that was touching. I agree. I hadn't really thought about it, but yeah, to see them, they're so invested in her success.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Did you have any other LLLs that you did, Missy?
No, I'm trying to teach I don't think so. I'm trying to teach myself or learn, I guess, I need a little greenhouse for outside. So I've been reading about what kind I need, but
like
I haven't gotten very far.
Small as you just showed with your hand, like how big is it?
I really do just need something like a couple shelves.
Uh-huh.
So this year I brought in a bunch of little plants that, of course, then you bring in some little bugs, and it's been a pain. So I would like next year when it turns cold to have some sort of, just a few things I would like to tuck away and have them survive the winter outside and not in my house. So
back to the Enneagram episode from last week. I totally want to research that for you now.
I'm going to task you with finding me the best small greenhouse. I don't have space. I mean, I have a fantasy of having a huge, beautiful greenhouse with like twinkle lights and you can walk through it, but I don't have that kind of space. And so it just needs to be something I can put on my side yard and not have to bring in every succulent I own and then have and some of them don't like being inside really, no matter how much sun they get. They just don't like it in here. I think they do better outside. So I wouldn't say I've learned anything yet, but that's what I keep going down those bunny trails this week. Every time I have a minute, I'm online trying to find a greenhouse, and I haven't. You
will learn.
Well, it takes a while. Like it's not like buying, pencils or something. It's just this big thing that takes a while, I guess.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I just want just the right one. It has to look just right, and it has to be a decent thing. I don't know.
It's a commitment.
I'm probably spinning my wheels a bit, but that's what I've spent too much time on this week.
And Olga, this has nothing to do with today's topic, but just curious. Have you ever heard of the Enneagram? Do you know your Enneagram number?
I've heard of it, and I think I even talked to Tess, but no, I don't remember the number. Yeah, I've heard good things about the big five, like how you have 5 big traits, and then you look at how much you have of each of those traits, like conscientiousness and neurosity and introversion. Extroversion is there also, I think.
Ooh, what's it called? The big five?
The big five, yeah.
Okay. Writing that down.
But yeah, there's so many tests right now. They're interesting.
Yes, we're just trying to learn. We're doing the deep dive to figure out what we're all about here. We're gonna get it all figured out, I'm sure.
I'm sure. Well, Olga, thank you. I know it's bedtime at your house or getting close to bedtime. So we so appreciate you taking some of your evening time away from family and being with us.
No, it was a pleasure. So I'm really happy to do this. And thanks for inviting me.
Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure to get to put more of a face and a voice with the name that I've seen in my Facebook group. So
Yeah.
it's
Absolutely.
nice.
And we're going to link to the book in our show notes. Is there anything else we can share with our audience? Places to follow you, website, social media, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so I run a Facebook group called the Niksen Years, like Musketeers, but Niksen Years.
Okay.
So I can send you the link, but I think it's easily findable on Facebook.
Okay.
So yeah.
Wonderful.
Awesome. Well, we will put that in our show notes too.
Thank you so much. Fun. Bye.
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 Thanks everyone for joining us this week on Mom and ... And of course, a big thank you to Olga Mecking for joining us. If you enjoyed the show, please be sure to subscribe and leave a review to help other busy moms be able to find us. And remember, we've got some professional life and career coaches coming up for upcoming episodes, and we need your questions. So go to momandpodcast.com with the AND spelled out and click on What's Your Question? And you can link to leave an anonymous, or you can leave your name for your question, or you can also call 512-730-0835 and you can leave us a voicemail with your question. Also, be sure to join our private Facebook group. You can find the link to that and all of our social media accounts over on our website. Again, that's momandpodcast.com. Now go out there and try some Niksen and make those ellipses count.